Hello, I'm Gregg Pollack, and this is my second Founders Talk. So, if you haven't watched the first one, you should go back and do that one because it has the whole story about how this all happened. And in this one, I'm going to go over 25 more things, totally new, that I've also learned in business along the way. This is the Founders Talk that you're going to want to see if you haven't seen it yet. So right now, as it stands, we've got about 14 people working on NV Labs, a consultancy, and about 27 working on Code School. We've never taken funding before. But I've been getting into that whole world of funding and acquisitions and what it's like and partnerships, and it's interesting. But that's for another talk. This is for small business people. This is not for big business, like with these sort of numbers flying around. Let's cut to the chase, because you're working for a startup and you want to know stuff you can use now. And everything that I'll be talking about is going to be a little all over the place, because that's the kind of guy I am. I'm kind of all over the place. Some of the lessons will be obvious, some of them won't. Hopefully you'll get something valuable out of it. So first one. Properly advertise yourself. I can't tell you how many websites I go to, corporate websites, startup websites, and you go there and it takes you forever to figure out what they do. So it's really important to say it up front, to have a nice description on the top of your page, to have a nice video saying what you do. For a long time, Code School didn't really have a good video on the front page. Also, as you build your front page for your startup, don't make yourself look like a big corporation. Why is that? Nobody wants to work with a big corporation. They want to work with people, nice people like you. We had this tradition back in NV Labs when we first put up the NV Labs website, where basically every time somebody joined our team permanently and needed to get their face up on the page, which you should do, by the way, put your face on your web page. So what we would do is we would put them in a room. We would grab lights. We have like two people with holding lights in their hands, and I'd have my little flip cam, and I'd go 1, 2, 3, go. And the guys with the lights would pretend like they were attacking them with the lights. And the person, of course, on the video would make all sorts of weird faces. And then I would take that video and I'd pick out a couple different really funny images of the faces that they made when they were being attacked. And everybody else besides them would get to vote on the pictures that would end up on the website. So this is what ended up on the website with at least the first couple people that joined NV Labs. And everybody hated their pictures. I hated mine. Everybody hated them because everybody else got to decide which ones of that individual person went up on the website. But when people would look at this, sometimes we would get clients that would call us and say, hey, I wanted to work with you guys, hear more about NV Labs. I saw your guys' team page. I think it's pretty awesome. You guys look like you're a fun group. People would say that because they would see these pictures and they would go, huh, these guys look like they've got personality and might be fun to work with. There's something fun about these pictures. So don't make yourself look corporate. Definitely put pictures of your team up there, goofy pictures maybe, professional pictures, yeah, but don't make people think that they're dealing with a corporation. You got to make it a little bit playful. Also, always get money up front. If you can't get money up front, if you don't think you can for your startup, you might not be thinking creatively enough. So NV Labs started out as a consultancy. Let me show you how we started and getting money up front, how we always got money up front, really. So let's say somebody came to us with a project. The rate we might quote them, let's say, for example, it was $115 an hour. It didn't start that high, believe me. And when I first started consulting, I think I was like at 25 bucks an hour. So $115 an hour, and we would estimate the number of hours it would take, for the first section of work. We always quoted hourly. I'm a big fan of keeping it hourly. And then we would show people, okay, roughly this first phase of development, 300 hours, is going to be $34,000, $500. And we'd say, but if you simply prepay in not 300 hours at a time, but maybe 60 hours at a time, and you pay us 60 hours, maybe 45 days ahead of when you would normally get billed for it and then have to give us a check. So if you just pay us a little bit ahead of time, then during the progress of this first phase, you're going to be saving $4,500. And when you put it in that context, all you have to do is pay us a little early and you save several $1,000s. Nobody ever didn't take us up on that. Everybody always went the prepaid route, because when you lay it out like that, they go, oh, okay, that's cool. I'll do it like that. But to be fair, we had a high level of transparency as to where those hours were getting spent. So we would tell people, you're going to pay us in 60-hour prepayments, and we will, at the end of every week, tell you exactly where those hours get billed. And I religiously, at the end of the week, would go into FreshBooks, pull down everybody's hour logs, put them, make them look a little prettier, put them in an email and say, hey, you started out the week with 60 hours prepaid. Here's exactly where the time got billed. And of course, all this stuff they had approved on Monday when we had a status call with them. You've got 20 hours left. Here's another invoice for another 60 hours. So we would always get this prepayment going, but we would show our work and our transparency, so there's a lot of trust that they knew where their money exactly was going. All right. Oh, I'm having a problem with this slide. Just a minute. And we're back. So number 4 is always try to make a friend. Whenever I found myself in a sales situation or something that might lead to a sale, I made it my first priority going into that meeting not to make the sale, to just make a friend. So that might consist of small talk, right? Oh, where are you from? Oh, that's cool. Or what part of town are you from? Or the weather's crappy outside, isn't it? Have any kids? What'd you do this weekend, right? So small talk, the kind of stuff that you would do with your friend, that's how you should be treating your new clients, right? It's about making a friend. And so you don't want to get down to business immediately, because then it just sounds like you're trying to get their money. Make a friend in business. So make that your first priority. Also, if you can remember, like, kids, go the extra mile. If you remember, like, kids' names, that can go the extra mile. So somebody tells you about their kids, you remember their names next time you see them. Hey, how are Jim and Joanne? Right? It makes people, think you care about them. But you do care about them, right? You should. But anyways, number 5. Solidify your core values. I know it sounds cheesy, core values. But if you can figure out what drives you, this here is about figuring out what drives you to do the work that you do. At MV Labs, at one point, we got up to about, I think, 7, 8 people, and I decided it was time to sort of figure out what drives us all. We got together in a room, I read online about how to do a constructive thing, about putting together your core values, and this is what we came up with. We came up with practice transparency, pursue excellence, foster education, and create fun. This is why the work we do here is worth doing well. We practice transparency with everything that we do and try to maintain, to do great communication, to be very honest and upfront about everything. We pursue excellence, which means we always try to make sure we use the best tool for the job, and work is only worth doing if we can do it well. We foster education. We strongly believe in people using new technologies, learning and getting better at what they do inside of our company, and also educating other people through things like Code School. And also fun, because you spend a lot of your life at work, so you should be able to have fun while you're doing it. So what's cool about these core values and knowing what they are is that it helps remind people why they're here and why work is worth doing well. And it also helps when you end up hiring people. You're going to be looking for people that follow these core values, that believe in these core values, because then they're going to fit better with your team. Also, if you have to make big company decisions at any point, big pivots for some reason, you're going to be able to look back at your core values and ask yourself, well, what represents, in this decision, what choice best represents what we believe in our core values? I've also used this to, whenever I need to give a pep talk to everybody on Monday morning, I use this to remind people why working here is worth doing, why this environment and the core things that we believe in and why work is worth doing well here. So that's it's good to figure out what drives you. It comes back to that drive. What is the common thing that drives you all together as a company? What makes your people unique? Next, number 6, obviously, be trustworthy, honest, and humble. I realized that as I was selling the consultancy, when I would talk with clients, I would have certain things that I would say that would convey honesty and being humble. I would talk about how we have systems in place with project managers so we can facilitate communication between you and our developers, because honestly, developers aren't that great at communicating. Right? It's a little self-deprecating humor. One of our core values is practice transparency. So we would talk to them about how that means every Monday we're going to be checking in with you to make sure that you like what we're working on that week, that you approve what we're working that week. And then on Friday, we're going to be sending you a status email. So you're going to know exactly where all the hours are billed and where the time is going, as well as we'll push the work up to a beta site so you can play around with it. And then often we would create screencasts, which I'll get to in a minute. All businesses are based on systems. So there's this book called The E-Myth. It's one of the most basic business books that's out there. Look it up, The E-Myth, so the letter E and then myth. And one of the big morals of that book is that every business is based on systems. So you can think of it like, in a bigger business, you've got the developers, the designers, the sales guy, the marketing guy, and each of them has a system about how they operate. The better the systems work together, the more successful the business is going to be. But every business, you kind of have to discover these as a startup and figure them out. This is kind of why a lot of small businesses fail, because they don't figure out the correct systems. They don't realize they need a sales system, a marketing system, a development system. This is also why franchises succeed. That's why people buy franchises, like McDonald's, Subway. Because when you buy into a franchise and open up a franchise business, it comes with a thick book, and probably videos, which describe all of the business processes that need to be in place to run a successful Starbucks or Subway. And so it dramatically increases your odds of success, because if you just follow the recipe with all the systems, you should do pretty well. That's why franchises are more likely to succeed than small businesses and startups. So given that all businesses are based on systems, it's your job to discover and improve the systems in it. Even if you're a small part of a big company, if you really want to make yourself valuable, identify ways to improve the system, to improve how it works. It could be as simple as, I spend 2 hours doing this piece of work, and I know that my coworker really likes it and is better than better than me at it, and I have other things I could spend my time on that would be more valuable. So let's delegate all of these specific kinds of tasks to Tim, because Tim is an expert at e-commerce. Or Tim is a better illustrator than I am, and I can focus on front-end design, development. So it's those sort of things that you can use to improve the system. And certainly as we've grown with NV Labs and Code School, oh my goodness, there are so many systems in place. As we get bigger, we identify, well, interesting. We've got a content team that creates content, and we realized, there's probably room to create a junior content person, and we'll have them create and write the challenges for our content. That way our content producers can spend more time on the content and less on the challenges, and they can oversee those challenges, and then it'll save them time. Or, there's a million little things like that we figured out are systems that we can assign to the right person. So, next up, hire a part-time project manager. So talking about delegating, if I look back at how I started the consulting business and then Code School and whatnot, if there's anything that I would have done earlier, it's find a part-time project manager. Right? So all of the scheduling, all of the reporting, all of the meeting notes, all of the client arrangements, all of this stuff can be easily delegated to somebody who's a project manager. When we were doing the consulting work and I hired the project manager, they were in charge of setting the meetings on Monday, or whenever they were, taking really good notes, following up with the client, saying, here's what was said in the call, here's what we're working on this week. They would then also on Friday create those hourly reports that would say exactly where the work was done. They would take care of the invoicing, make sure payments came in. And during the week, they would facilitate communication between the client and the developers. With Code School, it's a little less client-facing, as you can imagine, and a little bit more logistics. There's a lot more logistics to handle all that stuff. But even if you're not dealing with a client, it could just be setting meetings, helping you reach deadlines, helping you facilitate communication between different members on your team, making sure that all the tasks that you talk about get into your project management tool. Really, even if there's only 6 hours of administrative / project management work a week, you can still find somebody to do that work online that comes in maybe 2 hours a week or even does it remotely. And the way to think about it is, how much more value would you be able to add to the business if you had an extra 6 hours to work on it? An extra 6 hours? How much further could you get if you had an extra 6 hours per week? And if you can quantify that, even looking at that in dollar signs, right? How much more money could you make for the business with an extra 6 hours? Figure out what that is, and then hopefully you'll realize that if you went out and found a project manager, that it would pay for itself, that it would completely pay for itself. Next up, practice the pseudoscience of projections. This is something that I'm not that great at. I'm always working on it to get better. I'm always the kind of guy who likes to deal with what's in front of him, not look into the future and make assumptions, because assumptions are usually wrong. But as somebody who's creating their own business, it's something you just have to do. Make goals for yourself. 90 days from now, my goal is to have this many clients, which means roughly this much money coming in, which means I'm going to be able to hire this person, and I want to get to this point in the business, which means I'm going to be able to hire this many more people. So we really got to get good at doing a little bit of accounting. If you do have an accountant, then this is something they could run you through and show you how to do it in a spreadsheet in probably a more accurate way than you're going to be able to figure out on your own. Feel free to leverage an accountant if you have one. The same guy, the same guy that does your taxes. Next up, so as you start to build your company and you have, 2, 3, 4 people working for you, it's really important that you take the time to hang out outside of work, to do things fun outside of work, to build that relationship and solidify the friendships inside your company, right? Everybody works better in an environment where you're working with your friends and you're happy with what you're doing. And a lot of that can be spawned by doing things outside of work. I think this picture was taken on a trip down to Miami for a conference that a bunch of people went to. We stopped at a Thai place. We all had dinner together. There's this thing in Orlando called Whirly Ball. It's bumper carts meets lacrosse. And we did this. It was fun and competitive and definitely a great team building thing we're going to have to do again. Also, every year we go to Epcot Centers down at Disney World, their Food and Wine Festival, where we pay for everyone and their significant others to get into Epcot Center and eat and drink their way around the world. And it's really fun, and it's a good team building thing to get to know your teammates a little bit better. Also, number 11, hire people that fit your core values. I talked about this earlier. I probably didn't need this slide again, but it's important when you're interviewing people that you get the sense that they believe that they're the they have got personalities that match your core values. They believe, in our case, fostering education. I realized at some point that when we hire people for code school, they need to have that happiness in knowing and that drive to help educate people and knowing that they're helping people. And that's, they get happiness from knowing the work that they're doing, even if they're just doing, course bugs. They get happiness from knowing that they're fostering education in the community and helping people learn. It's something that's a core value to them. And so it's important that we hire people that like that. But it's interesting, as we've grown, a lot of people have asked me, why does Envy Labs still exist? You guys have a product, it's profitable. Why didn't people just move over to code school and work on a product? Because of course there's a lot of hype in our community about the product being the end-all and be-all, the place where you want to go, the base camp, create your own base camp, right? But what I found is there were certain people in our company that they started working on code school, and after about 6 months, they were like, kind of getting tired of working on this code base. They were ready to move on to a new project. I was like, I don't understand those people at all, because I'm driven by creating great educational experiences. They were driven by creating amazing software, pursuing excellence in software. And so we found that there were still people that enjoyed doing consulting work. I don't understand them anymore, well, because I've got other stuff. But consulting work is great, and there's people that love it. And that's why Envy Labs is still there, is that there was, people wanted, there's developers who want to have a greenfield project, a new project, every 6 months. And they don't want to get stuck on one project, even if it's their own. So it's important you find people that match up with that, with your core values. All right, number 12. Don't try to manage your friends. So in Envy Labs, we had a strong belief in paying everybody hourly because, well, all the people that joined our company were coming from they were a bunch of them independent contractors, all the first people who joined, the first 4 at least. And so I was in a unique position because of all the educational stuff in the blog that I had. I was able to charge enough of an hourly rate that I could get these other guys who were independent contractors, I could pay them a good enough rate for us all to work under the same flag with Envy Labs. And we kept the hourly rate. We still have the hourly rate on the Envy Labs side. What I like about the hourly rate is that people get paid for all of the time they spend, whether it's client work or not. We'll pay them for both billable and unbillable hours. All the time they work, we're paying them for. And if they work overtime, they get paid for it. And everybody who we hired is extremely honest. So I didn't have to care whether I liked that I didn't have to care if somebody billed 20 hours for the week or 50 hours for the week. As long as the client expectation was getting met, I didn't have to care. And I was paying them enough that the average number of hours that somebody would bill was actually around 30 hours a week. And they were getting paid a good salary for that. And it worked out really well. And I didn't have to manage anybody or worry about people, billing enough hours, spending enough hours, taking too many breaks. Everybody was just really honest about billing where they spent their time. And I think even though they were only building 30 hours, I suspect if they were on salary, they wouldn't have been any more productive. They were working at a natural, unstressed pace that really worked out. And in that system, I didn't have to manage them. So, and I think also this is about empowering people. Nobody wants to be directed. Nobody wants to have a boss. But if you can figure out ways to empower people to do good work and empower people to feel like they have control over what they work on, they're not going to feel managed. So that could be as simple as bringing somebody into a room and saying, this is what we have to accomplish. What do you think are some realistic deadlines to get this done? So you're putting the control in their hands to shape the deadlines, which they will then have more responsibility to meet. Also, 13, surround yourself with people you can hire. So when Envy Labs started, we started actually in a co-working space down here in Orlando called Collab. We had an office. We rented a little office there for I think like $450 a month. And there were lots of other people there at Collab that had their own small businesses. Some of them did marketing, and some of them did SEO, and some of them did design. So when we needed help, we had a client that said, hey, I need that. I would say, I think I know somebody. I would walk down the hall and say, hey, can we contract with you guys to do some SEO for this client and maybe some internet marketing? Maybe you can sit on a consulting call with them. And so I instantly had people that I knew were there working next to me, literally, who I could bring on as a contractor, not necessarily hire, but I could just contract them. And then, bill the clients for them, and then they get paid through us, and maybe make a little bit of money off the top of that. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you can have them just go direct to the contractor, which we've done several times as well. So if you can find yourself in spaces where you're going to be surrounded by people that you might need, it's going to be good. Also, 14, join a support group. So as your business gets bigger and it becomes lonelier at the leadership level, it's very important that you find the support you need. That could be through a mentor, through an advisor, or in my case, I ended up joining a CEO Nexus group. So basically it was 6 to 8 different CEOs, business owners that all got together once a month for like 3 or 4 hours. We all get to know each other, and then we talk about our issues. And I cannot tell you how validating it was to sit in a room and hear people talk about, their HR stuff, related issues, their co-owner that they couldn't stand, their accountant that they had to fire, the issues that people have to deal with, and realizing that I wasn't alone and other people were dealing with the same sort of ailments that come along with growing a business. That was really good. But I mean, even if you're not that big and you find a support group, that could also just be a business networking group that's exclusive for their members. But it's really good to surround yourself with other people who are starting businesses, which is, I guess, the moral of the story, so that when you have issues, you've got somebody to lean on that probably has the same issues. Also, number 15, create traditions. There's something cool about traditions, about stuff that we do that makes our company unique and different. For example, with this picture here, we have this tradition here called Whiskey Wednesdays. Every Wednesday around 3 o'clock, we try a new whiskey, sit around the couch, and just talk and see what people are doing. We also have traditions like that Epcot Center trip that I talked about. Also, at the very beginning, we had the tradition of every Friday we would all go out to lunch and the company would buy lunch. We still have that tradition with 41 people in our business. Every Friday at noon, we cater lunch and we try to make it interesting, and we bought lunch tables out in our big common space so that you can socialize. It's really important that that socialization happens. The more social connections you have with the people in your life, the happier you're going to be, right? I mean, isn't that like Humans 101? The more connections you have, the more social friends you have, the happier you will be. And some of that can be done through traditions. Number 16, don't be afraid to apologize to your clients. If you're working with clients or even customers and you fuck up, it's really important that you let them know about it. It's going to make you look more humble and honest. Don't be afraid of it. Don't hide ugly problems. Good example of that, clients, where we screwed up with something, we said, hey, sorry, this took longer than expected, or it's taking longer than expected. We just want to let you know on Friday it's not going to be live yet. We're really sorry. but we're going to do our best to make sure that we can deliver it on time on Monday. Don't be afraid to say I'm sorry. That could be the same thing for customers. If you've got a subscription service, if something screws up and you go down for an hour, let your customers know. Send them an email or send a blog post. You're like, hey, we want to apologize for the downtime. Here's the reason why it happened, and here's what we're doing to make sure it doesn't happen again. Thank you for sticking with us. We love our customers. Text like that can go a long way towards creating loyalty. Next, it's okay to lose money on a transaction. Just let your customer know about it. So for example, on the consulting side, let's say we estimated a task was going to take 10 hours. The week's gone by and we look down and oh my gosh, we billed 20 hours. And we can't bill them for 20, we told them it was going to take 10. So at that point, I would send the client an email and I would say, hey, just want to let you know that this task, we estimated 10, it took us 20, but we told you it was going to only take 10, so we're only going to bill you for 10 there. I just want to let you know. Once or twice, I've had customers come back in that instance and say, hey, go ahead and bill us. It's okay. Or I think sometimes they've said, well, how about we split the difference? Well, bill us for 15. Huh. It was interesting. So when that stuff happens, it's surprising. So it's also by letting them know that you're losing money, but you're going to stay true to your word. Again, that's honesty again, and trustworthiness and transparency that you're expressing. And you can do the same thing with products. There's nothing wrong with that. You can be upfront with your customers and just say, hey, we're losing money on this, but we love you guys, so we're going to honor what we said. Next, everybody's bad at following up. It's one of the things, especially as a developer, at heart, I don't like having to talk more than I have to. I talk enough. I have enough meetings as it is. The idea of picking up the phone and talking more, no, I want to build products. So follow-up doesn't really come naturally to me, but it's amazing how effective it really can be if you do it effectively. For example, let's say we go after a project. We're bidding on someone's product, and they're of course shopping it around, as they should. And they give us a call, hey, sorry, you didn't get it, we went with somebody else, or an email or whatnot. Does that mean we shouldn't follow up with them because we didn't get the deal? Not at all. You should follow up with them a month later. Hey, this is Greg from NV Labs. I'm just checking in because I want to make sure you guys got taken care of with that project you were building. Let us know if there's ever anything we can help with that or any other projects you have, because we'd love to work with you. We want your business. They might say, thanks for checking in, Greg. We're good now. Does that mean you shouldn't follow up after they said that? No. So maybe you wait a little bit longer. Maybe you wait 2 months. You check back in. Hey, Brad, how's it going? Just want to make sure you guys are doing great. The project's going well. How's it going? Have you guys launched yet? Right? Start a dialogue, and then eventually you can say, hey, let us know. We'd like to win your business someday. Let us know what we can do to win it. It's that type of persistence that is going to get you a job. So just one example of continuously following up. Just because you get a no once doesn't mean that you should stop following up. And I often would, when we need to drum up work, I would go to everybody who we had talked to previously, send them an email. Hey, just want to let you know we got some bandwidth and love to work with you again. Let us know if we can help. And I was always able to drum up work. If you had a list of 20 people, even if you only ever worked with 3, follow up with all 20. It's bound to lead to work. Also, communicate with your customer more than your competition. So, a good example here on the consulting side is on Fridays, we started to get into the habit of creating screencasts for our clients, which they would love. We would use Jing, and we would create a 5-minute, we wouldn't do any editing. You can't do editing with Jing, that's J-I-N-G. and it forces you to make it 5 minutes, which is good. And so we would have each of our developers get together, and at the end on Friday, create a screencast and walk through the features that they would do. So they say, here we are in the beta server, I'm showing you the new feature, click here, click there, you can see that it calls up. And what we found is that clients were more likely to look at the work that we did. And that's your goal, right? You want your client every week to get that little squirt of satisfaction that all the money they're paying you is worthwhile. And they're much more likely to watch a 5-minute video than to play through the beta server. Plus, creating a video, they can send it to their stakeholders. They can send it to their fans, to their friends and family and other bosses and say, hey, look what the development team did this week. Press play, go, and they can look. Plus then you have a library after a while of all the different pieces of functionality all along the way, stuff that you've built. So clients, when we would do that, would get addicted to that. They weren't going anywhere because we were communicating better than anybody else that they'd probably work with. And those screencasts were definitely one form of communication. You can say the same thing with sort of code school. And we're improving this along the way. The more that we can have direct communication with our clients, with the people that sign up, the more that we can delight them by telling them how awesome they're doing on courses or tweet at them. The more communication happens, well, the better we're going to be, the more passionate customers we're going to get, and we can get ahead of our competition. Number 20. Constantly look for things you can delegate. And this goes, a lot, especially as you grow. It's one thing you get to constantly do. And that's one thing I've probably learned more than anything else over the last 3 or 4 years is how to figure out what to delegate and to realize that I should not feel bad for delegating. I call this the engineer's dilemma. Engineers, as somebody who likes doing things and creating products, really often the engineer's dilemma looks something like this. If I'm capable of doing something, I should, because it's in front of me. So you're a developer, you're working on a project, you're doing it right, and you get this, you got to input all these values into this form, and it's there, and it's in front of you, and you could find someone else to do it, but it's just do it, and you sort of just do it because you can. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. If you can delegate it to somebody who's better at these sort of things, then maybe you should. And even the tasks that you look at and go, this is boring, I have a lot of empathy for people, and certainly I think many times like, oh, I'm going to hand this to them and they're going to be bored and they're going to not like me because I'm handing them a boring task. But the thing is, not everyone's like you. I learned this too. It was the craziest thing. When I hired these people called project managers, I was like, could you do this and this and this and this? And I tried to delegate stuff. And the next day I came back and I said, how's it going? Was that okay that I delegated that to you? And was that all right? And they said, Greg, this is what I enjoy doing. It's this type of organization, administration stuff. That's what I enjoy. Don't feel bad. You shouldn't feel bad. So delegate where you can. So I obviously hired project managers when I could and delegated all the administrative stuff. These days with Code School, we have project managers that facilitate all of the meetings, all of the communication, all of the scheduling. I can't tell you how nice it is to sit in on the Monday morning status meetings, and I get to sit in there, and the project managers do all the check-ins, and they go around the room and they say, hey, Tim, what's your status? And they go around the room and they track and they see where people are. And sometimes I don't have to say a word. Not at all. Because they are running the meeting, they are taking notes about what people are doing, they have it under control, they have the schedule. If it needs to be adjusted, they're doing that. And I get to sit back and be more creative, which is nice. And wait, before I move on, that also has to do, if you're in a company, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be, even if you're at the bottom of the totem pole, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be looking for things to delegate. There's going to be stuff on your plate that other people are well suited to do. There's going to be stuff on your plate that you are the best person to do, and you should make sure that you are spending all your time doing what you are best at. And if there's stuff that you're not, that's taking up your time when you could be adding more value, consider letting your boss know about that. Go to them and say, hey, this thing that I'm building here, this is important, right? This has a lot of value. Well, I've also got these tasks on my plate that also need to get done, but frankly, I think I could bring more value to the company if I was just working on these tasks, and maybe we found somebody else to do these other things. I don't mind doing them. Someone's got to do them. I don't mind doing them, but I know how valuable this is to you, and I really enjoy doing this, and so I would like to be doing this more if possible and less of this stuff. And if you reason to them and you say, hey, this is one way that I can build more business value by doing more of this work and less of this stuff, which is kind of boring to me and we could probably delegate to somebody else, then you're kind of helping them improve the business. You're helping them improve the system of their business. All right, number 21. Don't be afraid to take on more than you can handle. As things get overwhelming, and they do in business, you're going to end up with a ton of things on your plate, and things are going to slip through the cracks. I hate it when they do. It sucks when they do, right? But sometimes you kind of need stuff to start falling through the cracks, to start identifying what the most important things are that you should be working on. Number 22, never pass up on work. So as you start building a business or you're part of somebody else's business, you're going to recognize that there's opportunities for side businesses. People come to you and they say, hey, do you guys do this? And you're like, no, what we do is a little different. Sorry, we can't help you. Don't say that. Never say that, right? It should never be, sorry, we can't help you. Because if you want to make a customer, you want to help them, no matter what. And there's a lot of companies and startups out there that need business. So if somebody comes to you and you can't help them out, take a moment to think about who might need that work or where they could go to find somebody who could do that for them. I know with the consulting side of the business, I had people that I could refer work out to and get a referral fee for it. Sometimes even get a percentage of the total amount that they paid them. So they would, so a customer would come to me, I can't help you, but I have another team that I know here locally that does this sort of work, and I think they should be able to take care of you. Would you mind if I made an introduction? And so you're helping perhaps your other friends that have the other startup grow their business, or even you could be making money off of it if you charge a referral fee, if you ask for a referral fee. You can always ask for an agreement for that. If a lot of people are coming to you for a specific thing, you could go to the other startup and say, hey, getting some business here that I think would be good for you guys, but if you don't mind, I'd like some sort of referral fee. And that could just be an upfront cash thing if the deal lands, or it could be a percentage of their total revenue that they pay you. Lots of different ways to do that. But the bottom line is, take a moment when business comes your way to think about people who might benefit from that business or a way that you can help them. So often when I would get people that, here locally in Orlando, they call Envy Labs, hey, I need to build this website. I'm like, what's your budget? And they go, oh, I've got maybe like $5,000 for this whole thing. And I'm just like, we're not going to be able to do much with that. What you probably want is a contractor. Where can I find that? Well, first you're going to want to go down to the Orlando Ruby Users Group. The next one is next Thursday. Head on down to there, talk to a couple people, ask them who they recommend, who's a local contractor who could take on your business. So at least you're helping people. And of course, at the end of that phone call, what do I say? And when you get your business built and you raise some money or start to become wildly successful, then come back to Envy Labs and we'll do a bigger project for you. So I just might have made a future customer. Also, Give more compliments. This is something I've realized over and over again in business, is that nobody works well in a spirit of, working in a spirit of criticism. Nobody works well when they feel like they're going to be criticized. People work really well in a spirit of compliments. And it's the easiest way you can motivate people. And nobody gives enough compliments. So, one thing that I've challenged myself to do is whenever I recognize any good work that goes on, take the time to give a meaningful compliment. Meaningful isn't just, wow, that website looks great. It's more than that. It's, I love the colors that you picked for that website. I love the imagery that you used and the user interface design. It's spot on. Or it's even more personable. It's something like, what I really admire about you is that you are able to watch this video for this long. Right. What I really admire about you is that you always bring such positive energy to the work around you, and you're really good at graphic design. Right? That's a heartfelt compliment. And the more of those that you can give, the better people, or the more happiness you will spread to the people around you, the better the work that everybody is going to do. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. 24, understand that it's your job to wear all of the hats. If your business is stagnating, it might be because you're not wearing one of the hats. That could be sales, could be marketing, but something is wrong. So it's all about figuring those different hats out, figuring out the different roles, delegating, hiring people that are good at those roles and delegating those tasks to them, and understand that there's just so many skills that you have to be good at to run a business, and it's your job, if you're creating a startup of some sort, to be good at all of them. That is your responsibility. It is on you to learn about sales, to learn about marketing, to learn about SEO, to learn about design, to learn about development, to learn about everything. And only by getting a fully rounded view of everything and dabble, the best startup guys are not necessarily good at one thing. Some of the best startup guys I know dabble in a little bit of everything. And that's how they get their businesses off the ground. Number 25, last one, take calculated risk. Big businesses die. Why do they die? Because they stop taking risks. They get comfortable. Getting comfortable leads to stagnation, leads to slowing down your business, leads to your competition getting ahead of you, and your business going downward. So it's really important that you're taking enough calculated risk. And if you feel like you've gotten to a point where you're stagnating, maybe it's because it's time for you to step it up, take another big risk. That's something that I'm figuring out as well, because certainly with Code School, I often get caught up on the day-to-day. Create more courses, maintain the stuff. And it just goes on and on and on. And we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. But we might not be innovating. It's really important that you take risks, but calculated risks. What does that mean, calculated risk? Well, in my mind, it immediately makes me think of customer validation. I was talking to somebody, I should have added another slide here now that I think about it. You don't have, if it was a 26, it would say, you don't have to build a product to sell it. So many developers and product people make that mistake over and over and over again. They think of a product, they have one person that says they want it, and they build it, and they go away, and they spend 6 months building it without getting enough customers. The bottom line is, you should be able to get enough customers to be sustainable before you even have a product. How do you do that? Well, customer validation. You call around, you go to networking groups. For example, I did a cold call because at one point in time with Code School, we were thinking about doing an evaluation tool where we would be able to evaluate somebody's skill level on certain programming topics. And so I forced myself to do some customer validation. I even forced myself to do some cold calling. That's the worst, right? That's the worst. So I picked up the phone, I called a recruiter. I figured it was fair because they call me, I get to call them. I said, hey, my name's Gregg Pollack. I work for this company called Code School. We do online education. We're building a new product. Is there any, could I get maybe 5 minutes of your time just to ask you a few questions? Sure. I'd say, what are some of the problems that you have with your profession, with evaluating candidates for jobs? What are some of the biggest problems you run into? Now notice, I didn't ask, ever think you need a product to evaluate? No. I asked them, what are the problems that you find usually around, recruiting and getting people into jobs? What are the biggest problems? And they're going to name off, well, we have a hard time finding people, we have a hard time, whatever. They're going to name their maybe top 3 problems. And I'm sitting there on the phone, and I'm praying that one of the problems is going to be that they end up placing candidates that aren't qualified, right? And I'm praying that they're going to say my problem. If you're creating a product and you go and you find your customer and you ask them what the problems are, hopefully the one you're solving is in their top 3. It needs to be in the top 3 of their problems that you're trying to fix. If it's not, if they don't list the problem that you're trying to solve for them, then you might be in trouble. You might be creating something that people really don't need that much. So I would get back to the phone, I would talk to them and I would say, okay, they would often say, well, evaluating candidates, getting good qualified candidates. Oh, that's interesting. How do you guys do that now? Oh, okay. What are some of the problems with the system that you're using now? And you listen, write this stuff down. This is, gold. This is the greatest information ever. Because you're just figuring out how to create a product they're going to use. And then, of course, at the end of the call, you can ask, okay, that's interesting. Well, we're thinking about creating a product that does this. Would you be interested in maybe beta testing it? They go, of course. If it's a problem they're trying to solve, you just told them it was going to solve their problems. They're going to say, of course I wouldn't mind beta testing it for you. Oh, that's interesting, cool. And just out of curiosity, if we were able to create something that satisfied your needs, how much roughly, would you pay for it? And that's great information. They're going to tell you. And I can tell, when we did this validation, we actually found out what we thought our price range was, that the people we talked to came in at above. We could charge a lot more. They told us we could charge a lot more. They would expect to pay a lot more, and we would have underpriced ourselves. So at the end of the day, I had a bunch of people who were ready to beta test and probably pay for our product. And I would have, if you ever do this and you get people who say they're interested, and get like 20 people that are interested in your product, bring them for the ride. The best way that you can create future clients is by communicating with them and bringing them with you on a journey of building your product, because it's exciting for them. You could send them weekly updates. Hey, here's what we did this week. We built this feature, blah, blah, blah. Love to get your feedback on this screenshot. If they feel like they get to be involved in solving a pain point for them, they're 10 times more likely to be a loyal client in the future. And when I look back at my old, startups with, if you remember the first video with the project management tool, that's what I should have done that. I should have forced myself to reach out and find 20 companies that were eager to use this project management tool before I even created it. Because odds are their project management tool isn't perfect. It's got problems. I want to know those problems. And if I tell them, if I solve those problems, would you consider my product? Of course they're going to say yes. All right, well, that was a bit of a tangent, but hopefully it was worthwhile. And that's my 26 things in business that I think you should know about. There is definitely another video that comes after this. I tried to make this more accessible to the smaller startups, for those of you creating smaller startups. But there's definitely another Founders Talk that I'm going to have to do in the next few months that talks about the problems that you have as you build your business, as you get bigger, reach like 10, 20, 30 people. I could do a whole nother talk on that because there are a whole nother set of issues that you run into, as you might imagine. If you want to see that, let me know. And thanks for watching. What I admire the most about you is you made it to the end of this video. Have a good one.